far as we know, they all are descendants of Tosfos Yom Tov Lippman Heller. Tosfos Yom Tov Lippman Heller lived in approximately late 1600s. This is a picture of him. We have it's on the wall still. I'll find it, right. This is he was one of the major group of scholars, and he was at the time lived in Prague at the time of the 100-Year War, and he was denounced to the king, as he has many famous books. Commentaries primarily on the Mishnah. That's why it's called Tosfos Yom Tov Lippman Heller. Every Mishnah has his commentary. His commentary, the primary commentaries, and that's his. So everybody knows of him. And he had a death sentence. Because they said he wrote things against Christianity, and at the time the Jewish community was very heavily taxed, and he said it has to be proportional, and the richer people have to pay more, and he had certain enemies that he made. His son, who had been away learning for 6 years, was on his way back to see his parents, comes to a field and sees a bull chasing after a woman and a girl. And he went and he saved them. That girl was the daughter of the ambassador from France to, I guess we call Czechoslovakia. And that day when he came into town, when his son came into town, his father was in prison under death sentence, and he went to the ambassador to plead, and they discovered he's the one who saved his daughter. So he said, whatever I can do, I will do. And eventually he was able to get him out. The death sentence was commuted for 12 years. He was penniless, and finally he came back. So we're his descendants. After that, we have a jump to...
And every year there's a...
Huh?
Every year you're supposed to have like a
yes.
a party
so he said
on all his descendants.
There's two there's from when he was put into prison to die, every descendant was supposed to have a fast on that day, and then he established on the 2nd of Adar that there should be a family feast.
What was the date?
The 2nd of Adar.
What's Adar?
It's like before Purim. It's usually in
the Jewish month that when Purim is.
And we do this in our family, and there's many families in Israel. There's many different Heller descendant families. Like I've been seeing it written up the paper, or whatever, that do the fast and do the feast every year.
And how did you trace back to him?
So I'll get to it.
Okay.
Rebecca, we have a calendar in there. If you want to tell them what it is, we have a calendar in the kitchen.
This is your script book.
That's okay.
I'll stick with the information you do have, because you're never going to get to know it anyways.
I know the family came from Volkovitz because I lived with Aunt Dora for almost 2 years.
And I want to hear all about that. We'll get there.
So I know that the family was from Volkovitz, and there is after the Holocaust, there were books called memorial books, and in this memorial book, there are families mentioned quite a few times. That the family built a yeshiva and a hospital in Volkovisk. And there was, I have to look at the tree to remember how many different.
Where was this?
What?
Where was this?
Volkovisk is in Belarusia.
And where is Belarusia?
It's between Poland and Russia.
Part of the, was part of the
South,
Soviet Union.
immediately south of Lithuania.
Okay. Okay,
And
see, I always thought we were
north of
Latvia,
Ukraine.
Lithuania.
Huh?
I was always told we were Latvia, Lithuania,
So
because the names
Dissolved
changed.
and moved around.
that's
Or
also.
Prussia,
It's
or-
also true, the Latvia part is that from our grandmother's side.
Okay,
And this is from the grandpa.
This is only the grandfather's side, this is not,
Okay.
this is the the family owned, and was involved with lumbering.
okay.
One of our great-grandfather's brothers or nephew was one of the richest people in Poland. And so in one of the obituaries that was published for him, there is, it talked about some of the family history. And also in the memorial book, so it talks about the family, it talks about all the different things that they had done in Volkovisk. And in fact, so when the family moved there, I don't know. Also, I saw something that they lived in, there's another small town near there called Amdor that the family was, apparently the family originally was from. And our grandfather was born around 1885. And his father, who was born around 1850-ish. And eventually they ended up moving to Warsaw in Poland. Whether that was before or after, I don't know. Before he left or after he left. My assumption that he actually, my guess is that he left, that he ran away from the Russian army. That's my guess. Or they were able to pay his way out of it, because at that time they were going to take people in for 25 years. So getting out of the army was a very important thing. And like all these things so this is actually my bid for a family reunion, but a family reunion in Warsaw. So if there's anybody who sees this and would like to come, it's I have my daughter and several other children would like to go and meet and show the family things in Warsaw that we could go and meet, and then we would come and go there. Because why Warsaw? What's important about going to Warsaw? Because
You have family there yet?
we don't have any family.
In the cemetery, he was about to show you, there's a lot of family.
Where's the other one?
Because you had said you were going to go. Did you ever go?
No,
Or
we
No.
did not go. It got canceled at the last minute. I don't see where I'm missing one. This is a picture of our great-grandmother's monument
Wow,
that still exists, and we also have for our great-grandfather.
What's her name?
surprising.
Her name is Sarah. His name was Yosef Shlomo.
What's the last name?
No,
Helen.
Moshe Tzvi.
Oh,
Moshe
Helen.
Tzvi.
Helen.
Moshe Tzvi. Moshe Tzvi's father is Yosef Shlomo. Right. Our great-great-grandfather is Yosef Shlomo. His had a son, Moshe Tzvi, who was married to Sarah, and they are the parents of our grandfather.
Wow.
So we go back. The
19.
grandfather's 2, 3, 4 generations back. That we definitely know and have all the names of the family.
Okay, but the first one you were telling us about is how many generations before that?
Yom Tov Lippman Haller.
I don't know.
Okay.
But what
Because,
year
and
was
why I
he?
don't know is because in all probably we're descended from a daughter, not from a son, because we're not. Tosos Yom Tov was a Levi, and we're Israel. And I know my father even told me that. It definitely was not a.
Then how could
Question.
how could it still be the name Haller then?
Because once when we met Rav Geisler said people would take on the name of their spouse if it was more important. Now, there's a link that I think, and I've seen as well, there were rabbanim, there were rabbis in Volkovisk, and they took their father took his wife's name, which was Heller. Because it's also in the memorial book that this other rabbi who I'm referring to was a very important rabbi, and that he was the rabbi of the city. But to make the connection between him and the family, I've never been able to do. Although it's written down that we were relatives. But being able to prove things is something.
There's a couple missing links to say exactly how.
Have you tried Ancestry.com to
I've
see?
done all kinds of things. I've talked with genealogists. I haven't. It's a
Okay, I
mystery
didn't know
to me
how
not
far
to be
you
able to
had.
make that connection.
Okay, so the lumber business was our
So-
great-grandparents?
Yes, the family was involved with lumber, so that's how you. When our grandfather came to Canada, he went up to the Yukon and was a fur trader.
Okay,
So my father told me, why did he go to lumber camps? Because that was obvious to me, because that's what he grew up with. That was a natural thing for him to do.
mm-hmm,
So then, after that, he got married to Gussie Coutts and Heg Godfrey, and she died in 1916. My father was born in 1919. And they got married. He got married two years afterwards. So Godfrey must have been, I believe, with his grandparents, but I'm not sure.
Yona, the story,
what she's saying.
that's what my mother told me, is that he was sent to his grandparents in Chicago.
Maybe they immigrated.
But he went, well, I don't know, I know he went to Chicago to see them. I don't know
Yeah.
at what point, but I know they raised him until your grandpa, or our grandpa, was remarried, and then they shipped him back.
Uh-huh.
And our grandmother had to raise this child. She,
Not only did she raise him, he didn't know that he was adopted.
that's
Or that he didn't know
right.
that she wasn't his mother.
right, and that the story I was told was when he was sent, he went to visit his grandparents, and they told him that wasn't his mother, and they showed.
We saw a picture.
I don't know if they pointed to the picture, or if he saw the picture and said, "Who is that?" or if they said, "That's your real mother."
Uh-huh.
But our grandfather found out and never let them see him again.
Uh-huh.
Had you heard that part?
That part I never heard.
Yeah, that he was so angry. You know, why?
That I know that my parents said that from the shock that he had, that all those problems came from that.
Yeah.
So Godfrey was, he was the president of his class. Godfrey was the star. But Godfrey, unfortunately, got himself into trouble financially in a lot of places.
Yeah, what happened to him? He fell in with the wrong crowd somewhere.
Somewhere, who, what, we don't know. Number one, by our parents, you were not allowed to talk about it. Godfrey was a forbidden subject. Well,
Yeah, I didn't even know.
you couldn't ask a question
About
about him.
I couldn't ask my mother anything about
They
anything.
would
She
get
didn't
angry,
talk about
right? They
anything.
wouldn't talk about it, and they didn't want to talk about it. Last time was in 1960. He came up to Sault Ste. Marie, met my father. My father gave him $100, and last I ever heard of him.
See, Bev said something about the money. I knew that your father had connected with him, but I thought that just had a connection. I didn't know it had to do with money.
What do you mean?
I knew that your father was the last one to see him.
Right.
That he said that my assumption or my mother's assumption was that they were trying to reconnect.
No. He wanted. I don't know. My father never talked about it. All I know is that he went up to Sault Ste. Marie. He saw him. He wanted money. Gave him $100, and that was the last. Because what he had done, when he embezzled in Petoskey, so that was a tremendous embarrassment for the whole family. That's why my father moved up, because Godfrey had originally been in business with Grandpa.
Oh, I didn't know
He
that.
was in business
Oh,
in
so your
West.
father moved up to help your,
Because after
his
that,
father.
right? Because after Godfrey,
Oh, Godfrey
left
was in
town-
business
left
with
town.
his father, not your
Godfrey
father.
was a partner with our grandfather in West Side Salvage.
Okay. Okay, and
You
then,
know what West Side Salvage is? You heard about it?
Well, he was a fur trader and then he had the salvage business.
So they had a salvage business, right?
that's what the Jews did, they had
So
scrapyards.
it's,
In our
so it's
community,
thanks to Godfrey you grew up in Petoskey. If he hadn't left, your father might have never gone there.
Could be.
Oh, that's when he went up?
he went,
He
no,
went up when Godfrey left, he went up.
he
to
went
help
from Boyne
his father.
City to Petoskey,
Oh.
which
For
wasn't
some
far.
reason, they wouldn't move. Originally, right? They lived in Boyne City.
They're right near
My-
each other.
Our grandfather, our grandmother had studied nursing in not Atlanta, in Big Rapids, maybe?
Grand Rapids, I thought it was, wasn't it,
No,
or
it
somewhere?
wasn't in Grand Rapids. In Howell. She studied in Howell, Michigan.
Okay, that might be.
She studied nursing and
After the children were born.
No, before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people didn't
No,
do
no,
that.
no.
I didn't think so, okay.
No, before. How
Okay.
they met, where, that I don't know. All I know, what I do know is that my grandfather said, at one point they lived in Atlanta, which is a small town between
Oh, not
Boyne
not
City,
Georgia,
no,
okay.
no, between Boyne City and Ryder City. I think it's Ryder City, over on Lake Huron.
When did he come to the States?
Must have been somewhere between 1916 and 1918. Because before that, they had been up in Canada, and they had been in he had lived in Fort Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, but wasn't that during, people couldn't come during World War One, so it must
He
have
came
been.
before that.
Yeah, but,
I'm not going to go look up everything,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
otherwise it'll get
Yeah.
so distracted, nobody.
Yeah.
So, is it really incredible that there's this were most Jewish cemeteries destroyed?
Yes.
So it's like
This is
pretty.
the biggest Jewish cemetery in the world.
Okay.
And not only that, our great grandfather was buried in one of the first rows, and that row is where Amsham Chassidim, and he's buried between very close to where Amsham is. It's like a very important part of the cemetery.
Were other parts destroyed?
That cemetery, no.
Oh, okay.
It was saved.
For some reason, nobody knows why, but
Because
That's-
most of them, they took out,
most of them were destroyed.
they used the headstones for paving streets.
Right, but not in
Not in Poland?
in Warsaw.
Oh,
Hmm.
Warsaw.
In Poland for sure,
Mhm.
but this one still exists. This is the biggest Jewish cemetery in the world.
That's crazy, wow.
Yeah, my dad was Poland and grew up, well, when he was 5 years old, they went to
I thought
Flint.
they were in Russia.
Oh yeah?
So she knew a lot of my cousins before we ever heard of each other.
Huh.
There, he had,
Wow.
his dad's cousins went to our synagogue.
Aha.
wow.
Did your parents make that connection when they met in Florida?
Probably,
Okay.
because my dad was Michigan and they were in that same area. And his grandfather,
We figure we're related way back. I mean,
somewhere.
generations, but
So my daughter is our oldest daughter Shlomit in the Yisker book. So it talks about the person who wrote it. He talks about two families, how they were very close and they davened in the same synagogue, and that's the great grandfather of our
The Einhorn.
right our oldest son-in-law.
Yeah.
They davened in the same place in Volkovisk.
So my great grandfather was looked at trees and estimated timber, like he was supposed to be the top estimator
Huh.
in his area, in Russia or wherever they were.
Wow.
So
you don't know the name?
they names changed, the draft would come in and they'd change names, so I don't know.
Yeah, we don't even know on that side what our last name is. From Kaplan?
what it was before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, really?
I don't know.
So that's all we know.
Yeah, Dad didn't even have a birth date.
No birth certificate or anything.
So Godfrey was always this closed story that, and then you had the letters
letters.
from prison.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to write to them to see if there was a Freedom of Information Act that you could get things
I
out.
contacted them,
Oh, yeah?
and I had the numbers. His prisoner number was
Uh-huh.
on one of the letters, and they said that all of their records from a certain time prior to that were all lost in a fire.
Aha.
Do you know
And
how
maybe
many-
they said that so you didn't bother them. Who knows? But they said all the records were gone.
Do you know how many years he was in prison?
2, I think.
Oh.
I think it was
Not
2
very long.
years.
So it wasn't murder.
No.
No,
So
but he
it was
No.
pulled a
embe-
gun.
so it was
Yeah,
embezzlement,
it was a felony. He used a weapon to make a robbery.
Oh, is that what? Well, he claims in those letters, I didn't do what they said I did. He said, I've done a lot of bad things, but I didn't do what I was accused of this time. I was set up. But I think they just wanted to nab him because he was a bad dude. I figured he was mafia, or not mafia, but a gangster. That was my assumption. I don't know. From that time period. I don't know if he was petty crimes, or if he was involved, connected. I don't know.
Well, they sent him from Michigan to
Back to
Washington.
No, he was
No.
already out there.
he was like caught there, and then
Yeah.
they sent him back to Canada.
Yeah, then they deported him to Canada
Right
from there.
afterwards.
Hmm.
And then after that, that's when people lost touch and didn't know what happened to him after he went back to Canada, or?
Yeah. Yeah, but he was living in Canada. That's why he had to meet at the border at Sault Ste.
It
Marie.
must be. Mm-hmm.
Oh, why you met your father at the border?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he couldn't come back in.
Grandma never spoke of him.
We didn't even know he existed for a long time. My mother never spoke of anything. I know almost nothing of her childhood. She talked a little bit about a dentist that lived nearby that was friends with the family. The one story she told me about your father is that a couple stories about your father. He got a big spanking for. She must have been about 5 years old, and he took her ice fishing.
Yeah?
And
My father?
yeah, he took her ice
That means
fishing.
How old was he? 7?
7 or 8, and they went out ice fishing, and they had a little shanty set up on the lake, and he wanted to go home to eat something, and he left her there.
5-year-old then?
And they're like, "Where's your sister?" "Oh, she's at the lake." And I think he got his hind end tanned over that for leaving her there.
Huh, I never heard this story.
And another time, they were at school, and the teacher asked, went around the room and said, "What did you have for breakfast?" And he said, "Raisin Bran." And later she said, "You didn't have Raisin Bran for breakfast." And he goes, "You know I can't say prunes." Prunes.
Oh, he didn't want to be embarrassed.
He didn't want to be embarrassed saying punes because he couldn't pronounce prunes.
So he made up.
So he said Raisin Bran. She told me that story
She
several
didn't
times.
tell many stories.
And she didn't tell many stories. No.
Right. What year was your mother?
She was 10, 10, 21. No, 23.
So she's 4 years younger than my father.
Okay.
So your father was not, so it was 5 and 9. Was
Right,
their-
but no,
Yeah.
what I'm actually thinking about,
Mm.
they were alive, their grandfather died in 1927, and their grandmother died in 1928. Are there letters that anybody in the family received, or pictures? This was a wealthy family that lived in Warsaw, because we had cousins who lived in Vancouver. Actually, one of their two brothers, And your mother had met them, or your mother communicated with them, I know,
Mhm.
because she gave me a connection with them. Samuel and what's the other one? I can't remember right now. Heller, and they have a daughter. She came. She was at her wedding.
Dawn, what's her name?
Huh?
Dawn?
No, not Dawn. Barbara Heller. There's a cousin. She lives in. She's a well-known, I guess, professor or artist in weaving.
And where? Wheeling?
Weaving. She's a
Oh,
weaver.
weaving, in
She's a
weaving.
weaver
Oh, where does she live?
in Vancouver.
In Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know they visited, they got a family tree.
Right. They got that.
And do you have a copy of it?
Yes.
And I know she laid it out on the table for me, and there were large sections that had little black boxes on each of the names. And I remember asking her, what does that mean? And she said, that means they're dead.
Right.
And I'm like, why are entire families dead? And they didn't talk about the Holocaust. But that's, they didn't, but that's
So,
what happened.
In the Holocaust. So when I was trying to do research,
So their grandparents
oh,
passed
this
away
is actually
in
of our
Warsaw
this is our grandfather's.
a couple years after they were born.
That's our grandfather.
This is our grandfather.
In Warsaw.
This is Moshe Tzvi.
In Warsaw.
This is in Warsaw. That's why I said that for the family to go to
It's okay.
Warsaw, or some member of the
Why,
family.
why did he, they took him back to Warsaw to bury him?
They lived in Warsaw.
What's the
Oh, no,
question?
no,
When did
our-
he die? Which year?
Our
He
grandfather.
died in 27.
You don't mean
Our
grand-
great-grandfather.
Oh,
You
great
mean great-grandfather.
Okay,
They
yeah,
were
that's
born
why I
in,
was
like,
confused. Okay,
23 and
Okay.
19.
okay.
So, our grandfather had a sister named Celia.
Oh, I never heard about her.
And Celia married Yosef Bouquet. And Dora married Bukowski. So
Oh, we've got his?
I also found what happened is that about about 10 years ago, somebody was doing research in Warsaw, and there's now a Jewish caretaker, and they've been taking pictures. That's why do I have the pictures? Because there's an online listing of who was. And our great grandmother, I couldn't find it. Only this year did I finally find it.
Well, when did Aunt Dora's
so
husband?
when I found our great grandmother, also found Aunt Dora's husband, and also Celia Bouquet. Celia Bouquet's, they died during the Shoah, during the Holocaust. Her husband, she was shot. She, I know because
And she was who? I get lost.
our grandfather's sister.
Gotcha.
Yeah, great aunts.
Okay.
Your great grandfather.
Our great aunt Celia lived in Luge.
Your
Okay.
great grandfather's sister.
My grandfather's sister,
Oh, okay.
not my great
Oh, okay,
grandfather. My
fine.
grandfather's sister. One of his sisters was named Celia Bouquet. They lived in Luge. Our grandfather bought them a factory. And I have lots of pictures of her and the family, but it's I have to Xerox or I do have a scanner and send them. I have to make things organized sometimes.
Well, I think my mother said that her grandfather was a horseman, that they had horses. And that's where she always said that I got it from.
Could be.
Because she said they had money, and then other people would say, oh, they always said, everybody said their family had money.
I know other the family member, Shmuel and his brother told me they used to go for Pesach. They would go to to our grandparents in Warsaw. So and their father was very wealthy.
It's your great grandparents.
Now I'm going back to the great
Yeah,
grandparents.
your great grandparents in Warsaw. Okay.
Right.
Well, so
So Celia Bouquet, her son.
He survived?
No, he died during the Holocaust,
Okay,
but his wife survived.
okay.
They somehow went from Lodz to Warsaw, and she survived and went to Sweden.
Okay.
And I found her daughter a few months, and for years and years I've been searching for her, doing all kinds of, trying to find through Sweden to find where, And a few months later, her daughter contacted me after her mother died. She actually came to visit us here, but somehow we lost touch. So she sent me a lot of letters. She sent me the death certificates and all these pictures.
Wow. It's amazing. So how many siblings did our grandfather have?
I have to look on around 9.
Oh,
Around
okay.
8.
Okay. And Dora was the only one that made it here?
Yes, and our grandfather. Our grandfather brought Aunt Dora.
Okay.
Aunt Dora was in Warsaw at the beginning of the war. They lived in Otwocsk. Aunt Dora and her husband lived in Otwocsk.
Which is?
Otwocsk is a suburb of Warsaw.
Okay.
It's very famous for 2 things. It's famous for its health spas. People had tuberculosis. And there were a lot of Hasidic rabbis who were there, including ours. So we have all these interconnections that we have. That unfortunately we don't know anything exactly like this. Our great grandparents were alive. Your mother didn't. My father. Nobody said anything. With letters, I can't imagine there weren't letters that went back and forth. There had to be, but nobody told us anything. Aunt Dora, they had a sanatorium, but their sanatorium was not for people with tuberculosis. And it's very well known. And in fact, you can see pictures of it on the internet. Today, it's a high school. But I, in my laziness, still, even on my notebook, I'm supposed to contact the historian of Otwocsk to find out about it. But you can go see pictures, you can go on Google, you can travel right up to it and see it.
Very interesting.
So there's a real reason for for somebody in the family to get together and go, that we should go meet in Warsaw.
Well, but there would be like
There's places to go to
nobody
see. It's true.
left.
There was one
Like
person,
nobody
there
who
was one person
survived,
who was left,
really?
who his name was Mark Zlatkov, something like that. And he had lived in Australia, and then he went back to Warsaw. And I spoke with him many years ago, but it was also pretty difficult to communicate with him. He was already in his 90s.
Oh. So all of these people who were buried in Warsaw, was it all from the war, or were they?
No,
Oh no, it was before.
our great grandparents
Oh,
died in
buried.
27
Oh.
and 28, but
What were in the other?
and Dora's husband survived the war.
Oh, he
He
did?
survived the war. He didn't die until around 1952.
Wow.
Is
But
this
they never
some
tried to find
plastic,
each
or
other?
Had somebody marked this?
Somebody, I don't know.
Stone.
I'm not sure if they marked it or if they marked on a picture.
Oh, okay. But those are
Now,
your
Ours.
great grandparents.
Your great grandparents.
Okay.
now, why wouldn't they have tried to connect? Maybe she just didn't think,
Who?
Dora, try to find her husband.
Who did survive?
Whether they got, it seems clear that there was a lot of marital lack of harmony between them even before the war.
Oh, so she didn't really want to find him.
She always spoke, she always talked about him, that she was the wife of Dr. Gustav Krukowski. She had a lot of pride in this. She was he was a doctor, and she had a doctorate in chemistry that she
From
learned,
Italy.
in Italy, right?
And I have a watch locket that he gave her as a present,
Who's he?
Dora's husband.
Yeah?
Dora's husband gave it to her, and that's the only thing she gave to my mother. And my mother gave it to me,
And you have it.
and I have it.
So, this would be great grandmother Dora married a Krakow.
No. She was a great aunt.
Oh, okay.
She was your great grandfather's sister. We'll write it all out.
But she married into that name.
She married a Krukowski.
Okay. Well, this is also new to me. I love asking people questions about history, especially when I'm here. But I just learned last night from one of Jordan's roommates that, like in Poland, when it has ski at the end, that like that first part is like the supposedly where you're from in the country.
Yeah?
So, maybe Krakow? Krakowski?
Could be.
Krakow? Could be. Could be, yeah.
It's overwhelming, and I'm going to run out of tape here in about 6 minutes. But I know nothing. I take that back. The only thing my mother ever said about Aunt Dora is that when she came over here, she was embarrassed by the lowered social status that her brother now had, and she looked down on him.
Right. When she first came over, she lived with them for some period of time.
Mm-hmm.
They did not get along,
No.
and they were very. Right. She was. Hello.
Where in the States did they go?
Hello.